Hey buddies, my name is Simba, but I'm also known as Coach Smooth. Welcome into the Mathsbuddies tutorials. In today, where I'm currently shooting this video, it is raining. So if you hear any rain, I'd like to apologize for that. But I'll try to make sure that I raise my voice so that I become clear while I'm doing the video. So in this video, we're going to be looking into calculus. We're going to be doing the first part of calculus, which is working with the first principles and talking about tangents and all of those kind of situations, right? So if you are new to the channel, I would like to welcome you. This is basically a continuation of the trial preparations. In the previous video yesterday, we basically covered financial maths. So now we're going straight into calculus. So without wasting any further time, we're going to go straight into today's video. So here we're given a 6.1 question. Now the question here, it says, determine f prime x from first principles if f of x is equals to minus 3x squared. All right. Now, we know that here we are given f of x as minus 3x squared, and then we are being asked to calculate the derivative using first principles. Now what I like to do is to always first apply a power rule so that I can understand what is it that I'm trying to get into, right, when I'm doing my first principle. So now here, when I'm using the power rule to get the derivative of this, I see that I'm getting minus 6x. Now to understand how I got into minus 6x, all you have to do is to take the power of x and then multiply it with the constant, and then after doing that, you will then subtract that power by 1. So if you do this, 2 times minus 3, it was minus 6, and then x, and then 2 minus 1 gives you 1, hence now we have 6x there. Alright, so now we know that this is the answer that we're trying to get into. So now we're going to go straight into our first principle. Now with the first principle, you don't have to memorize this formula. You're going to be given on your formula sheet. If they don't provide it, please ask that they give you that. So the formula here is the limit as h approaches 0 of f of x plus h minus f of x over h. Alright, so now here, to understand how this works, I'm going to explain what does f of x plus h mean. So f of x plus h mean, now in my graph f, when I see x, I need to substitute x plus h. So now therefore, here I have f prime x equals to the limit as h approaches 0. So now my graph of f, I know it is minus 3x squared, but then now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to say minus 3. Then because of I have this x squared there, I'm just going to put this as a bracket and then square it. But then inside, I'm going to put in x plus h, right? Because that's what this thing says, right? Then now from here, I'm going to say minus. Now f of x, it is minus 3x squared. So I'm going to open the bracket to write it as minus 3x squared. Now these are easy marks, guys. This is where you can basically score more marks. And then now we take this and make it over h. And then from here, I'm going to continue and say this is still lim as h approaches 0. And then I'm going to say minus 3. So I'm going to simplify this x plus h all squared. So when I do that, I get x squared plus 2xh plus h squared. Then now here I have a negative times, a negative times a negative. So when I do that, I get a positive. Then I say 3x squared. And then I take all of this and I still divide it by h. And from here, I'm going to multiply this minus 3 inside there, and there. So when I do that, I'm still left with my limit. I still keep my limit. Then this becomes minus 3x squared minus 6xh and minus 3h squared, right? Then I still have plus 3x squared, and then all of this is still divided by h. Then notice that here, this minus 3x squared, it cancels with that, but then I still have my limit. So keep f prime x as the limit as h approaches 0. Then now at the top, I'm left with minus 6xh and then minus 3h squared. Now this will still be over h. And now right here, I can see that at the top, if I want to simplify this further, I can then take out the common factor there, which in this case can be h, right? So now by taking out h, I'm left with minus 6x and then minus 3h over h, right? So you can take the highest common factor or you can just a common factor. But then now here I've taken out this h because I wanted to cancel there, and that is the whole idea of the first principle. And then this means now here the limit as h approaches 0, it becomes minus 6x minus 3h. And then now that everything it is simplified, I can then substitute my h as 0. So this gives me minus 6x minus 3 into 0. And then when I simplify this, this gives me f prime x is equals to minus 6x. Now notice that this is the same as that, and that basically what makes me know that my answer is correct. Alright, so now let's go ahead and look into the second question. Now in the second question, we try to calculate dy dx if y is equals to 7x to the power 4 minus 5x, minus 5 square root x minus 3 over x. Alright, so now here, this means now the minute we get this dy dx, we need to think of a power rule. Now remember, a power rule, in order for it to work, firstly, your equation, it must have all the x's, right, as the basis of an exponent, right? So what do I mean by that? It means each and every term here needs to be written in an exponential form. Now currently, we have 7x to the power 4, so that is okay. But then now here we have 5 root x. Now we cannot have root x in a power rule. So now this means now what we need to do here is to change that square root x and write it as 1 over 2. Now this basically looks like an exponent now, because the base here is going to be minus 5. Sorry, the coefficient is going to be minus 5. The base is going to be x. In the power, it is going to be 1 over 2. Now what about 3 over x? Now 3 over x can then be written as 3x to the power of minus 1. Now remember, whenever you're taking the x that is on the denominator, when you're taking it up, it basically means that its power is going to be negative. Now because of I have this means now from here, I can then do my power rule. Now dy dx will then be my derivative, meaning I'm differentiating x. Now here, we'll start by multiplying this term. So 4 times 7, so that will be 28x, and then here I'm going to subtract 4 with 1, that will be 3, and then we're going to do the same thing on this one, half multiplied by minus 5, so that will be minus 5 over 2x, and then when you subtract the minus 1, let me just put minus 1 there, just so that you can understand that we keep subtracting here. Let me rather use a different color, minus 1, so this minus 1 will equal 3, but then on this one, we're going to get a negative half, right? Now, please make sure that you press those things on your calculator, because it becomes easy when you do that. All right, now here, negative 1 times negative 3, it gives you positive 3. Then you're going to put the x. Now, remember here, we're still subtracting with 1. Then now this means now this is going to be minus 2, right? Now, the question here, you need to be very careful. The question here says determine dy dx. But then it didn't say and simplify, right? So this means now here your answer could be correct even if you do it like that. But if now, let's say for argument's sake, they want you to basically simplify further, now all you have to do is to say dy dx is going to be equals to, so you're going to have 28x cubed, and now remember here you had minus 5 over 2. So now this x is on the numerator part because it's at the top. So let me rather actually write it up there so that you can see it is with 5, and then put that negative 1 over 2. So now to make it positive, it means I need to take it underneath. So by taking it underneath, it means I will have 5 over 2 x to the power of 1 over 2. And then now here I had 3 x to the power minus 2, but then now when I take that x to the power minus 2, it means now it's going to be like that. Now again, this x to the power of 1 over 2, if you remember initially, we said that that was a square root. So it means if I want to simplify that one further, I can then write it as 28x to the power cube minus 5 over 2 square root x plus 3 over x squared, and that will be our final answer. All right, so now let's go ahead and jump into the last question. So the last question here is more of like a general question, or it is a theoretical question. So they try to see if you understand what it means, or do you have any knowledge about cubed functions. So let's go ahead and read this instruction. So here it says that it is given that g of x is equals to ax cubed minus 24x plus b, right? This has a local minimum turning point at minus 2 is to 17. Now the question says determines the values of a and b. Alright, so now what do we have here? So here we're given a point. Here we're given, firstly, let me write the function. So we're given a function that is ax cubed minus 24x plus b. Now this function has a point. So this point, it is minus 2 is to 17. Now we're told that this is a point, but then it also acts as a turning point, right? Now, because of this means now if this is a point, right, we can actually substitute it in our original equation, right? But then now, what if it is a turning point? Now if it is a turning point, what we can do is we can actually take its x value and then substitute it into its derivative, right? Why? Because we know that when it comes to a turning point, a derivative is always equated into 0, and in that way we get to actually find the x coordinate of a turning point. So what are the things that we're going to do here? So the first thing that we're going to do is, number one, we're going to sub minus 2 is to 17 into g, because this is a point, right? So how do we do that? So we do that by denoting this as x and that is y. So therefore this means now here we're going to have 17 equals to a into minus 2 to the power 3 minus 24 into minus 2 and then plus b, right? So now from here we can then simplify this. So by simplifying this, we'll have here 17 equals to, so minus 2 to the power 3, it gives me minus 8a, and then this times 2, it gives me plus 48 plus b, right? Now by the looks of this thing, you can see that we can actually make b subject to the formula, or rather we can just take this number, this 8 minus 8a across, and then take this one across, and then have a first equation, right? So let me go ahead and do this one instead. 48 minus 17 plus b, and then just simplify this and make it my first equation. So now this means now here I'm going to have 31 plus b, and then I'll make this equation 1. Now after having this as equation 1, the second thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to use x is equals to minus 2, right, is the x coordinate of the turning point of g, right? Now in order for me to do that, because if I'm using this as an x coordinate of the turning point, the first thing that I'm going to do then is I'll take the derivative and then equate it with 0, because by having a derivative at 0, it means now we are at a turning point, right? Then from here I'll differentiate my graph, which is the g of x. Now when I do that, I get 3a x to the power 2 minus 24. Now notice that b doesn't have x next to it, so it means b acts as a constant. Now because of that, it means it will be 0, because the derivative of a constant is 0, and I'll equate this with 0. Then now here I'll say minus 3a x squared minus 24 equals 0. Then now from there I'll substitute my value for x, because now I'm at a turning point right now, so which means the value there I know it is minus 2 minus 24 equals 0. And then now this means therefore that I have 3a into, now minus 2 squared, it is 4 minus 24 equals 0. Then now from here 3 times 4 gives me 12a, and I'll take this minus 24 across so that I can get 24. Divide this by 12, divide this by 12, and then a will be 2. So now I do have the value for a. Now what am I going to do next? So therefore what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into my equation, the equation that I had. So 8a was 31 plus b, and now here I'll sub a is equals to 2. So when I do that, I have 8 into 2 equals to 31 plus b. Now this is 16 minus 31 is equals to b. So let me just rewrite this correctly. So which means basically b, it is 16 minus 31. And then now going to my calculator, we just take out my calculator. 16 minus 31 now gives me minus 15. So it means my value, it is minus 15. So therefore a is 2 and b is minus 15, and that is how we basically solve this question. And that is all for this video. Of course, there are so many questions that you might encounter, but in this one, the main idea about these videos is to basically understand what happens when you see such keywords. So when I underline these such things and share with all of these things, make sure that you take note of that, because in all other questions that you might experience, they will leave these keywords, especially for this one: minimum, local minimum, turning point. Those are the things that you must always know, that when you have that, these are the two options that you must always think of, right? And that's it for this video, and I'm going to see you in the next one where we discuss more about the trial preparations for paper 1. I'm going to see you into that one. Cheers.